Hello, welcome back to Why Jesus 2. I am Yolene and this is Jonathan. How you doing, Jonathan?
I'm good.
Awesome, and we have our lovely camera person behind the scenes doing all the wonderful camera work, and that is Raquel. So, I would say that it's nice to see you again. You were in our first series.
It was too.
And so we're grateful to have you back. How have you been?
Been good. Been busy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, life keeps me busy.
Life is still life.
It is.
Well, it's the same. I'm happy to be back, and I wonder how you're all doing since the last time we saw you. So that's very good, and we got the thumbs up from our camera, so we know we're going in the right direction. So, would you mind starting off with a word of prayer just to anchor our feet today?
Sure. Dear Father in heaven, we want to thank you for this day. We ask that you please be with us as we record this podcast, and that you'll please be with all those who are listening and help us to be a blessing, but also to be blessed. For this is our prayer in your precious and holy name, Lord. Amen.
Amen. So, as you know, with our series, we want to talk about the practical ways of interacting as Christians and anchoring our discussion on why we've chosen to walk with Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
And each time we talk, it's about a new topic. So today you want to tell us a little bit about what you want to focus on in our conversation?
So, I guess the topic that I kind of went with for our conversation was why Jesus in the country. And something that's kind of means a lot to me and has meant a lot to my family and my current family, my immediate family. And so, yeah, I want to explore that topic today.
Jesus in the country.
Yeah.
I like it. What about you? Where do you like Jesus best? So we're going to anchor our conversation today on Jesus in the country. How were you introduced to country life, country living?
So for me, I was introduced to country life by my parents.
Mm-hmm.
My mom grew up in the city. My dad grew up on a farm. And they wanted, I guess my dad realized the benefit of living in the country. And so he wanted that for his kids. And my mom agreed. And so they tried to find a place out in the country, and they succeeded. East of the capital, and that's where I spent the majority of my life, and still. So I've always lived in the country, except for when I went to school for a hot second. That I stayed in the city.
And so what would you say are the benefits to country life for yourself as a Christian and for your family, the way you want to raise them as Christians?
So I'd say the benefits of living out in the country for myself was peace, quiet, the freedom to explore with, the guidelines and boundaries. That's the word I'm looking for. The boundaries that my parents put in place. It was a lot easier for them to put boundaries and not have any exterior force outside of the family push on those boundaries. So I got to love nature very easily because it was all around. Didn't have to wait to go to a park or run across town to go hiking. Got to learn how to garden and all that stuff. So I feel like it had a very big impact on who I became as an individual and as a Christian, and now my family loves it as well.
Awesome. So are you missing anything? Do you think your family's missing anything by being in this wide open space with boundaries but yet free to roam and move?
I know that's I guess a big topic that comes up a lot is people, when you say you live out in the country, the first thing they ask is like, oh, well, aren't your kids going to be under socialized, or don't you miss the social life of the city? And the benefit is like where we live now is we don't live too far from the city. Like if there's all green lights and no traffic, I can get here in about 12 to 15 minutes. I can probably do it in 10 if,
Yes.
depending, but that's not always legal. So, but I don't live too far, so like to get to what I would need, I can get there quickly. Um, but growing up, I never felt like I was under socialized, like I was missing anything. There were some things I didn't have, like street smarts. I didn't get till much later, like how to walk and how to make sure that you keep your wits about you and stuff like that in more in the core of the city. But other than that, like the benefit of having a church environment, a church community, especially growing up in decently large sized church, not a huge church, but a large church, was the fact that like every week you were always being surrounded with uh, a social group, familiar
new
faces, and a social group that you could always connect with. So I never felt like, oh, I don't have any friends or whatever. I didn't have tons of friends in my area, because my family kept to themselves most of the time. But I didn't feel like when I did go to like when I joined public school that I didn't know how to socialize. I socialized very well. So
Was that a function of the fact that you had siblings already, like in your
I think it helped a
immediate
lot.
family?
Having my brother and sister. I mean, we were our best friends. We were also our worst enemies all at the same time. As the sibling thing goes. So we'd get up to whatever we could. We grew up on a small, like, half-acre lot, surrounded by fields, and we would, like, sky was the limit. Trees, we had no fear. Dad's garage was available for whatever our imaginations could go through. And then all the food in the garden was snack time.
Right.
Every day was snack time.
Yes.
So I feel like it helped having siblings that were close in age. A year and a half for my older brother, and 2 and 3, basically 3.5 years between me and my sister. It helped a lot because we were close, like super close.
Did you hear a lot of no as a child growing up in the country? Because I know in the city, when I recall living in the city at between 10 and 14, there were a lot of, no, you can't go here, that's not a place for a dentist, and you can't hang around with certain groups. So did you hear a lot of no in your setting? Or
I mean, I think I heard a lot of no in other contexts than no, you can't go here, and no, you can't hang out with that group, because for us there wasn't as much of a desire to go places or hang out with other groups, because we'd have our group of friends when we got older. We had our teen years, and we'd be like, oh, let's go to the movies. But we all knew each other, and like, oh, after church, let's go to the movies, and then we gotta drive home. So it wasn't like, hey, I'm just gonna go and chill with these people. So we didn't have that set of no's. It was more like, no, you cannot build a ramp in the driveway. No, you cannot build that. No, you cannot use the power tools. Where are my power tools?
Yes.
Stay away from the gasoline.
Right.
Why are you touching the tractor? There were different
Safety
no's.
no's.
There were more safety no's,
Okay.
and trying to
keep you all
curb
alive.
that curiosity
Yes.
as we explored physics and science all at the same time.
Sounds like a rambunctious crew. I can definitely relate to that, and I don't know how about you, if you can relate to growing up in the country and comparing that to some time when you spent in the cities. Like in my early mid-20s to early 40s, I raised my kids in the country. I had moved to the country, and then when I was a child in the Caribbean, from 2 till about 9, we lived in the country. And so in between those times, it was city in 4 different continents. So but I can compare very, very clearly the value of being in the country and being in the city, because in the city is nice to have arts and access to variety of foods and cultures and various people that you wouldn't necessarily see in a small town or at least back in the day. Now small towns are quite diverse. You're getting a lot of, diversity dispersed. So I can clearly see though that there was quietness, there was less traffic, there was more time spent with the family, whether you were male or female at home. You had more time with your kids, more time with your partner. You did things together. And then in the city, it was like you were always going in two different directions. Drop the kids off, someone went to work, and and then you only got a little bit of time at home to cook a meal and to eat and clean up, and then everybody goes to bed. So you really don't get to spend that much time doing things together.
Yeah.
Whereas in the country, you needed everybody. So I found more people were engaged and build relationships.
And that's one of the things that I know my wife likes about it is. Especially with the way finances are for everyone nowadays, the way the economy is, we did the math, and to send our twins to daycare would have cost her exact paycheck. And so we looked at each other like there's basically no point, because that also excludes the gas to drive them there and the gas for you to drive to your job, and then we're just like, at that point, you're gonna go back to work for what, maybe an extra $100? So we decided to X that, and she loves having all that time to experience, like, because she grew up in the country, so she gets to experience something and watch her kids start a life that she didn't have.
Right.
She grew up downtown Gatineau, and so seeing her kids like, oh, what's that? I can grab a sunflower and just go
and smell it with all the little,
and then covered in pollen and just start sneezing their little brains out. And then grabbing fistfuls of grass and then realizing that grass doesn't taste as good as a salad does.
Yes.
And so it's a joy to be able to watch them experience life and nature so close. Without having to worry about oh no, don't touch that, we don't know who walked there or who did what there.
Do you find, to your point, do you find that their personality is more strengthened, encouraged, supported by that country living?
I would say so. Some of the, I guess, most well-rounded and most interesting of characters I know usually come from the countryside. Usually they have that aspect of, they know what peace and tranquility is, to just go outside early in the morning. You have the dew, you have a slight fog, and all you can hear is
birds.
The wildlife going to sleep and the wildlife waking up. Some people get to experience that when they go on nature retreats, if you live near the water, hearing a loon first thing in the morning.
Pretty incredible.
It brings you straight into how naturey you are. You're just like, wow. So I feel like it will definitely have an impact on my kids' character and development. They're still relatively young, but you can start to see that they go outside and they have no fear of nature. Bugs, bees, flowers. My son has feet made out of steel. He'll just walk barefoot on gravel. And his sister's like, ow, ow, ow. And he's just do. I'm like, kid, I don't even know how the soles of your feet are made out of just straight leather.
Adapting, yes. That's pretty brilliant, right? And to your point, there is value on so many levels with the little things and the big things. So, building on that, what's a day in the life like for your family in the country?
So,
a Christian family in the country.
So I'd say a day in our life, let's take, for example, if I take work out of the equation, because I work as a contractor, so my days start really early. I wake up around 4:30, do my morning devotions, scrounge something for food. If there isn't food that's prepared, scrounge something for lunch. Do what I can to help out, and then I'm off on the road. If I take that out of the equation, then it's usually, depending on how late the kids went to bed, it's an early morning, and then first thing I do is either try to prep food for when they wake up, and then it's outside first thing. Got a lot of land, so it's Do I work on heating? Do I work on food? Do I work on future plans? Like, what do we want to do with this part of our property? Do I tend the garden? Do I mow the lawn? Mowing the lawn is satisfying, but at the same time, extremely tedious.
Lots of work.
When you have so much of it, you realize, wow.
Mm-hmm.
It always boggles my mind when I see people in the city and they care way too much about their grass. I'm like, guys, it's just grass. I have so much grass. People drive like, oh, I'm sorry, I drove on your lawn. I'm like, God, you see this? You see all this grass? You think I'm caring about that one little rut?
Mm-hmm.
Please.
A bush, yes.
But I know right now for us, like it changes depending on the season. In the winter, usually a little bit less to do, clearing the driveway.
Mm-hmm.
In the springtime, it's make sure the garden's in as quickly as possible and start pruning any fruit trees, any fruit bushes. Summer, a little bit more relaxed, it's just maintenance and prepping for the fall, and then fall is the big season.
Mm-hmm.
Making sure all the firewood's stacked, dried, and put into the
In the right places. Right.
into the right places, and then harvesting, preserving, drying, foraging. All that stuff happens mainly during the fall. So fall is like
Busy time.
we've been preserving and canning for 3.5 weeks straight so far. So we love it. It's not for everyone. Not everyone does it, but I grew up. My mom did it. She taught my wife. My wife loves it. I help her. I also enjoy it.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's nice to know that the can of corn that you pull out of your pantry is the same can of corn that you took the seed, stuck in the ground, watched it grow, chopped all the kernels off, spent how many hours watching it can, and then waiting. You're like, I know exactly where that came from.
That's right.
From dirt to table.
You know the whole path, the food path. Amazing. And your kids will get that instilled from very early, right? Like they were a part of it from the very ground, seed ground, to the putting it on the shelf.
It'll be awesome
pantry.
to start to teach them about creation, life, and gardening.
Wow. So I mean, for your neighbors, how do they see you and your wife and your kids in the country? How do they see the way you live? Your farming, hobby farm, or, and how you're building, how you're prepping. Like, how do they see that? Or do they see that? Do they interact with you when you're doing that?
So we have a very interesting mix of neighbors. The ones across from us don't talk to us. They're relatively close because even though I have a decent chunk of space, it's longer than it is wide. So it's not a square, it's a very skinny rectangle.
Okay.
So like whatever my neighbor's doing, I can see him. The other side, there's a little bit more trees and buildings and like a fence between us. So I don't see what he was doing when he was there. But I mean, they were excited for when we bought the place because we had big plans. We still have big plans for the place.
You bought it off of them?
No, I bought it off of the third owner. So the third owner, we bought off the third owner. One of the neighbors' siblings had lived there before.
Okay.
Before the third owner, and so we bought it off them, and they had just let it get overgrown. The second owner had horses and goats and whatever, and so we told them, like, we have plans. We're gonna be brush clearing this. We're planning to put an orchard here, a plot of grain here. We're doing this in the back, trails. And they were just excited to be like, I'm glad to see that this chunk of land is going to be used for something and not just turn into bush.
Right.
So
when you say country, can you give us a little bit more of an imagery? So is it like you're drawing water? Do you have a well? Is there a septic? Is it on a city? Any city amenities? Like, give us a picture of what this country living looks like.
So where I live now, and I guess where I've always lived, we've always had a well. I never had to draw water. But I mean, if I had to live there, it'd just be probably build a cistern and fill it up and make less trips. I'm kind of the person who will
Well.
find a way to make my life a little bit more efficient. But no city amenities. There's no bus. Live in a small town. Maybe what 50 or so houses spread out, more like a community than a town. Just outside of a small town before a small city. So there's road, decent quality, could be better, could be paved, but it's not a heavily trafficked road, so it'll get paved when it gets paved. During the winter time, it's one of the last roads to get plowed.
Wow.
So if I want to go anywhere,
You're the flower.
it's just like
You're the salter.
there's one of our neighbors down the street. He has a plow truck, and when he goes out, he just plows the road on his way to the main road. So if you get enough momentum, you can kind of hop over into his track and then ride his track all the way into town. But where we live, we don't have like Uber Eats just came to deliver to our place, which is funny because we're only like 15 minutes from the edge of where we live, the closest city, but 15 minutes is too far.
Wow.
It's
For
too
delivery.
far. It's too far for delivery, extra cost. So apparently now they've just realized, oh no, we can deliver out to you.
Still within the boundaries of the
So
city.
yeah, I have to put a cap on that for certain members of my household because they would just be ordering delivery every chance they got. So before that, it was very like there's no delivery except for the small chip stand down the road. The fire department is more of a foundation saver than a house saver. It's
Okay.
it's if your house goes up, it's basically start calling your insurance company anyways. Septic of a driveway. Everyone keeps complaining about my driveway because one, it wasn't built properly. So every spring, no matter how hard I try, there's just massive potholes.
Right.
Massive potholes on my gravel driveway. It's about like 400 feet long, and I just look at it as anti bad person deterrent because no one's gonna they're gonna start getting halfway down the driveway and be like, bro, the neighbor's is better. It has better driveway than this. It's not even worth. Does he really have that great of a stuff? He can't even do his driveway properly. So it's funny to watch people come into it and they just slow right down. Like no one's just rocketed in here that quickly. So, but it's not much different than living in the city. I mean, yeah,
Is it for everybody though?
I would say no. I've known people who went from city life to country life, and the change, like the learning curve to go from, I can just pop into the grocery store, I can take a bus. It's the city's problem for water and sewage. Electricity is more cost effective, usually in the city. It's a big shift. It's a big shift because then you have to deal with different issues, different creatures, different problems. Sometimes you can live in floodplains. So it requires, as one I guess one of my mentors taught me, is strong body creates a strong mind, and a strong mind creates a strong body, and not everyone is called to it. I feel like God gave certain people certain gifts and certain talents and certain levels of perseverance, and kind of need that level of perseverance and a healthy dose of stubbornness in order to live in the country and enjoy it.
Would you say that this fortitude is something that one can work towards acquiring? They can learn from, say, another brother or sister, another family, or it's something that you can read upon and become more versed in, being a country.
Yeah, I would say yes. Anyone can live in the country. It's just how quickly will you learn to enjoy living in the country? You can take anyone and plop them in the country. They might be cursing, kicking, and screaming while they're there, but if you have someone close enough to you who, can just help you when you need it, to, so maybe borrow some tools off of while you build your collection,
Yes.
I worked as a tree climber, so my tool list of knocking down trees is pretty extensive. So if my neighbor's like, this tree's a little sketch, I'm like, yeah, well, I'm your man, so.
They can call on you.
Yeah, they're just like, how about we do this? I'm like, well, where's the fun in that? I mean, if you're calling me all the way out here to help you with the tree, let's have some fun while doing it. So anyone can learn to be in the country. Books are a good start, but going and visiting someone who is in the country will let you, watch or, help as they go through their day-to-day life, and maybe come over to your place and give you some pointers on, like, I would do this, these are my 2 cents, or to give you their 2 cents on whether or not that specific property is ideal.
Yeah, to live on. Would you say country living most likely would suit couples, families, single people?
I find most likely it would be couples, usually who want to start a family, or families. There's a lot to do in the country. Not that a single person can't live in the country. One of my neighbors, he was divorced, and he had horses and all by himself. Had a job at a factory, came home, tended his horses. It just gets a lot. Depending on what you feel you're called to do in the country, and how much you bite off, it can get overwhelming really quick.
Sure can.
Especially with the weather. The rain, the snow, the heat, the everything.
And whether you have a heavily treed lot, versus if you're open fields, right?
Yeah. Then it can be the wind, it can be the wildlife.
Yes, the wildlife.
Yeah, yeah. They're amazing.
Yes.
Very amazing. Very up close and personal.
I want to share something with you from Ministry of Healing, which is a book that by author Ellen G. White, and she talked a little bit about like country living and the value, and it says it was not God's purpose that people should be crowded into cities or huddled together in terraces and tenements like apartments. So in the beginning, thinking about, the Garden of Eden, like the original creation space, God placed our foreparents, Adam and Eve, amidst the beautiful sights and the sounds He desires us, right, to rejoice in even to today. He did that country living context in the very beginning, and it's still His preference even till the end of time, right? And so the more nearly we can come into harmony with that desire of God, right, His original plan, the more favorable will be our position to secure healthy body, healthy mind, and healthy spirit, right? And so that's what Ministry of Healing was sharing with us. And what you're saying, it speaks to that, right? And I can attest to that too, in living in the country for over 15 years, remote. Really
100%.
Remote, isolated, as well as also to your experience, like where you have neighbors in a small community and that you can count on them. To that point about neighbors in a small community, like I live in the country now with my kids, and my neighbor in front of me is like a family member. Like this morning, the septic had to get pumped. So we both teamed up to pump our septic at the same time, planned it together,
Nice.
and then I had to get my septic tank all dug up. Guess who I called? It was him. And together we're there with our shovel and everything, and we dug it up, and then I had to run out this morning to go to Ottawa for a meeting, and he was working on it. And when I came back, we continued working on it, right?
Nice.
Trees to cut down. He's got his chainsaw, and we're walking all around cutting down trees, right? So that idea of having close neighbors and people you can relate to and connect with, and if you needed to borrow something, you have that relationship where you can, and if you have that skill set of your time, right, you can share that with them when they're working on their projects too, right?
Yeah, 100%.
That's country living benefits.
Yeah, another story that I could touch on that
Mhm.
was well, two things. Growing up where we used to live, I said, half acre, not a very big lot, but surrounded by field, and there was a farmer, and I remember one time my mom, to introduce herself, she went and baked fresh bread and brought to the neighbor,
Mhm.
and so thankful. He had huge farm, bunch of cows, bunch of fields, and at one point during the winter, we were struggling. Snowblower broke. My mom was like, let's go to grandma's Nana's house," and that was back when snowfalls were like 4 feet, like every other week.
Yeah.
And she came back, and he had showed up with his backhoe, and he just plowed the entire thing and made a huge mountain of snow. And we saw that, and we're just
Your
like,
kids must have had a ball.
we were just in and out, 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 in and out. And he did that for us multiple times. And we would bake bread and go over and see the cows or whatever. And he when we did move from there, he was like, it's sad to see good neighbors go. And
Yes.
even though I drive by that place, I'm still have fond memories. And where we are now, like we're developing those connections where we keep an eye on each other. My neighbor will let me know when he's heading out of town.
Yes. You can
And-
check up on the place.
And he'll be like, these are the people who should be showing up. I'm like, all right, so if I see a vehicle that doesn't match that description, so what do you want me to do?
Yes,
He's
yes.
like, do this. Like, okay, cool.
Oh, that's
And then we let
excellent.
him know when we're heading out of town or when we're going to be making a lot of noise, fireworks or whatever. And
I appreciate that.
he's like, oh, my grandkids are coming over, so it might be noise. I'm like, noise. I got a dog.
Won't even hear.
When anyone walks down the road, it's a loud time with my dog. So I can
Fabulous.
barely hear his grandkids.
How has your living in the country experience brought you closer to God, or has it not? How has it?
I think it has.
Mhm.
I truly believe it has.
Mhm.
Just being that close, like, I can find comfort and peace knowing that seeing the nature and the creatures that God made. I always loved animals. One time it was like summer break in between college. Had nothing to do.
Mhm.
I didn't have a part-time job at the moment. I was like in between jobs. I was like, oh, what do I do? So I got a stack, about 30 documentaries, nature documentaries, and I watched them back to back.
Oh, wow.
To the point where my mom kicked me out of the house. She's like, please stop watching documentaries. I'd watched Blue Planet, Planet Earth, and
Love Blue
all the
Planet.
day now. Back to back. I was like 12 hours in a row, just one after the other. I would just go at it. And so I always loved nature, and being able to be that up close, like walk outside,
Mhm.
and there's a deer.
Oh, yes.
Like within like maybe 6 feet of you, and you're like,
Close
wow.
by. Mhm.
You go to bed late at night, you hear the coyotes. You see something scurrying down the
A
street,
little
and you're just
feet.
like, wow.
Yeah.
Seeing a red fox dart across the road early in the morning, turkeys,
Mhm.
eagles. You just get an appreciation and an awe of who God is and the power that He has. When the wind blows and you feel the trees in the house shake, you're just like,
Mhm.
that's my God.
Yes.
And you get to see like all these things, like an amazing God took the time to make that animal, that creature, glimmer when the light hit it, just so.
That's right. Yeah, absolutely. And to your point, that seeing God's handiwork, His creation, so vivid and up close,
Mhm.
it reminds you of Him, but also it allows you to see how special you are to Him, that He allowed you to see that, right?
Mm-hmm.
To recognize His
Which
beauty.
reminds me of a story. I remember I was working in my workshop inside, and we have 2 cats. So we have a dog and 2 cats. And one of our cats is white. The other one's more like a Siamese-looking cat. And so I was sitting there working on something, and I saw something white go between my legs. I was like, "What's the Duchess doing here?" And I looked down. It wasn't a skunk. It was about this big, but it was an ermine. And it was wintertime, so it had its white coat with a black tip tail, and it just weaved between my legs and just popped down the old dryer vent, and I heard it scurry all the way to our wood stove
Oh,
and just made a little. I was like,
that's something else.
I was just like,
I
what's
have
this
yet
cat?
to see in her mind.
And I was like, wow. And they're beautiful,
Yes.
especially in wintertime there. If you live in a climate where you can see an ermine in the wintertime, they like a small, very, very small ferret, about this big.
Yeah.
Vicious little things. They're relatively nice to humans, but they can be vicious to any small critters you have as pets.
Yeah.
But so beautiful, stark white, black little eyes,
Mm-hmm.
black tip on its tail, and it just looks at you, and you're just like, wow.
Curious.
Curious little thing, and just not afraid.
Yeah.
It realizes it's like, what you gonna do?
You're bigger than me, but.
What you gonna do?
So, I mean, that being said, your most meaningful lesson from your country living experience, what was that?
I guess the most meaningful
Mm-hmm.
lesson I've had from living out in the country.
Or what did the country teach you or taught
Well, the
you?
country's taught me a lot, how to commune with God.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said before, when you go out in the morning, you have that stillness, that quiet.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I live close enough that I can hear the cars going up and down the major road, but only in the distance. You get out and it's truly quiet. No hum, no buzz.
Right.
Maybe you might hear the odd truck in the distance, but it's very, very peaceful. And that adds to the verse when he says he'll give you that peace that passeth all understanding. And so you just, I always find that when I'm in nature, I feel God more.
Mm-hmm.
I can relate with him more. I can connect with him more.
Mm-hmm.
And so I guess the best lesson that I've taken away from the country is just feeling and connecting with God. If I'm stressed or, been an overwhelming period in my life, nothing like a good camping trip
Mm-hmm.
to really get away from the hubble that may be in your house,
Mm-hmm.
to go and just, one time I went camping and went to the same park we always went to, close to the Ontario-Quebec border on the east end, and got up early, went to go see the sunrise down by the water. They had built like a dam to put in a road behind it, so just a big lake. And I went there, and there were 3 otters just playing in the water, and I was within 8 feet of them, and I just played and played and played, and I sat there and I watched them for an hour as the sun came up, and I heard the loons, and I just saw the fog. I was like, wow.
Yeah.
As if, and then they would come up on the shore like within feet, and I just didn't move, and they would just sit there and just frolic
Do their
in the
thing.
water. I was like, wow, so amazing.
So this is really great. I'm glad that we had a chance to touch base about country living, what it can be, what it has been, from rural to semi-rural to remote, to self-sufficiency, to partial sufficiency, to gardening, to looking at animals and types and neighbors spaced or very close, big family, small family, multi-generational,
Yeah.
family that can all be positively impacted by being in that context of country living, and how it shaped your life and your parents, and now shaping your life that you're building with your new family. It can look like many things: cozy, casual, or high tech, like a big farm, right?
Yeah.
But what I'm hearing and what's settled with me, and I hope is also settled with you, is that it is possible,
Yeah.
and it can add to your Christian experience, your Christian journey, and it can add to your sense of connectedness to God, and can give you meaning and purpose within yourself, within your walk with God, within your family, and within your community.
Yeah.
So anything like that is certainly a bonus, right?
I think so too. And anyone who's curious, you should just find out if there's someone who church around you, someone within your friend group who does live out in the country. And if you're curious or you've something that you've wanted to pursue, just go and have a conversation with them. More than likely, I can guarantee you their eyes will light up when you ask them about the country.
Yeah. Well, I'm really glad we had this time to chat, and thank you for sharing a little bit about your slice of heaven on earth, and how it's been a blessing to you. And I hope it's been a blessing to you to listen in and hear a little bit about what our brother and friend Jonathan is doing and how he's doing it and where he's doing it.
Mhm.
And we wish that wherever you are and whatever you're doing, that it has meaning to you, and that it draws you closer to God, and that it helps you to see your value in relation to him and the rest of creation. And we're grateful again that you tuned in, and we're looking forward to seeing you again at our next session, where we are anchoring life experiences as it happened for us and as we've seen it with others, in why we've chosen to live in relation to Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
So again, thank you very much for coming
Thank you
today.
for having me.
And I'll do a little prayer to close off.
Sure.
And then we'll head. Lord, thank you so much for this opportunity to come together again and to listen and share and speak with our brothers and sisters and neighbors across our lovely community of Cornwall. I thank you for Jonathan and his family and for the journey that they've been called to in country living. I thank you for our production team and for their journey, and for mine and my family, and for all of our viewers who are watching. Lord, I pray that you will bless us and you will lead us every day, not into temptation, but deliver us from evil, and that you will continue to guide us beside still waters or small towns or little hamlets, and that you will help us to plan and count the cost and be mindful of the different ways we can live in closeness to you and nature, and honoring the best parts of our soul. Thank you again for this opportunity. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Thanks again. Take care.